Hello, welcome to an episode of The Heart of. I just beat the game Goodbye Volcano High, and I have a lot of feelings about it. So I wanted to dive in this episode of the podcast to talk about it. Goodbye Volcano High is a game that takes place in high school, and you play a non binary dinosaur named Fang, and they are the front person for this rock group called Worm Drama. They have a friend named Trisha. They have another friend named Reed. Reed is the drummer. Trish is the guitarist, and Fang also plays guitar and does vocals. So, senior year is upon us, and Fang has not had the greatest summer and feels isolated and wants to really strike out with this band and do the thing that they love. And at the beginning of the game, they're working on a song, and it's coming together beautifully. And they send it out to this person who's in charge of a battle of the bands. They get accepted, and Fang rushes off, and immediately from the jump, the game presents its thesis about time. How much time do you have? Fang wants to do this band. She wants to make it her everything. Her friends they're interested in the band, of course, but they have new friends, they have new hobbies, they're trying to discover ultimately what they want out of life. But the issue with Fang is they're so narrow minded in what they want that they just assume that everyone else that is in that orbit wants that too. And from the jump, I think we can relate when we're teenagers and or even now when you want something and you love it so much and you have people along for the ride with you and you think that they want it just as much as you do, but that's not always the case. And it's not malicious. It's not something where, oh, they're doing this to spite me. They're on their road too, and they can't always articulate why they can't do what you want them to do or be there in the way you want them to be there. So Fang comes up against this wall constantly throughout the game where they're frustrated that they're so excited that they're able to make these things happen, and their friends are they're excited, but they're not committing the way Fang hopes they would commit. There's a moment in the game where Fang finds out some news and they hold an emergency meeting for the band, Worm Drama. And, Reed and Trisha show up like good friends, but Trisha's got to go. She got stuff to do. Reed has a thing he got planned. And Fang's like, what the hell? Like, everyone's being weird. And Reed breaks it down in a very simple way. There's a in-game Dungeons and Dragons game called Legends and Lore, LNL, and he tells Fang, "I know this game better than everyone in the whole school, but I've been playing this game since I was in 8th grade. I know the ins and outs of it. I know what it's like to be excited about something and not have people be excited the same way you are." And I think that's true. I myself get fixated on things, and I think about them and I think about them and I want to talk about it. And it's hard sometimes when you go and you try to talk about it with someone, and they'll humor you for a little bit and they'll talk about it, but you really want to like talk about it. And there's a point where through no faults of their own, they're not interested anymore. And they can only really humor you for so long, and then they kind of move on. And but you're like, and you desperately try to find an avenue to let it out. So in my mind, that's what Fang is going through. The band is everything, music, and she's excuse me. They've had a whole summer to 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 work on it and to think about it and work on these songs and dissect their older songs and they want to really do something. So one of the contentions of them getting into this battle of the bands, the thing that they send Fang sends their song to the person in the beginning was they have to do new material. They kept getting rejected because LJ, the woman that runs it, didn't like their old songs. Okay, easy fix. Fang, excuse me, wasn't feeling their old material, so they can make new material. And Fang's just at a different place. Fang has a younger brother that, in their eyes, is like the prize of their parents' affection, which you know is a little frustrating. Uh, Fang, because Fang is non-binary, they don't feel seen by their parents, who you know Fang's chosen name is Fang, but the parents still call Fang the birth name. And Fang is just trying to juggle all these things, so they really hunkered down and focused on music. So new material is easy for Fang right now. That's something they can do, but it's not a place where the band's at. They weren't thinking of new material. They were at different points in their lives. Trisha is really into bugs. I mean, really into bugs, and she gets this cute little worm named Mango. Um, and Fang is like, oh, that's cute, I guess, or she can say, oh, that's gross, but it's only ever a passing, fleeting interest. This is what Trisha's into right now, and Fang doesn't really acknowledge that. Reed is really into LNL, but Fang has never really acknowledged that, and they get so wrapped up in their world and what they want that they lose sight of what everyone else is doing. And that's the whole notion of time, right? Because all of Fang's time gets warped up in this, that she doesn't give the time to her friends to see what they're into, where they're at. Are they willing to follow their dream? And Fang's dream? You know, and that becomes a center conflict in the game itself. Um, as the game progresses in the early stages, you find out a asteroid is coming to the planet, and it's going to hit the planet. And it's speculated it will, it won't, it will, it won't. But the notion of time then becomes a super important thing, right? Fang wants to double down on the band. We only have finite time. Let's make this work. And every time, Trisha's time is divided. She has a younger sister. She has to babysit. She has these projects. She has this new person in her life that she's quite interested in, whether it's just a huge friendship or romantic. They never entirely dive into, but still. And school and in classes and Reed has his job and LNL and the band and school and classes. So, but Fang doesn't look at it like, wow, our time is just so divided up. Fang looks at it as, why aren't they giving this time to me? And in some ways, it's like I thought we were all on board on this. You can come from a perspective of Fang is going, why isn't this just as important to them as it is to me? We all started this together. We all jumped into this band together. And I get it. Again, we all had the thing that maybe you started with someone and you get super passionate about, but then they naturally have other things that are just as important. And with this asteroid looming in the game, it only heightens it. So that comes to the second point of friends. Fang has all these different friends with these different passions, and I'm not going to break down every single friend. That's a lot. And just in case you want to play the game yourself, and you can have different. It's a choose your own adventure game, so different choices, probably different things, but everyone's on their own path, and time is precious, and Fang needs to understand that time is precious. And over the course of the game, they understand and they begin to understand why time is precious, and that you think people can give the time to you, and that's not always the case. And you have to understand why they can't give the time. It's not just like, oh, you can't hang out and do this band practice. Well, why? Okay, great. You can't hold that against them. And subconsciously, at times, Fang does that. And it's not all just the band. Like, oh, it's just the band. The idea that Fang is losing their friends, and it feels like I'm just going to be here by myself, because if the summer was so isolating because they were wrapped up in their thing, and this is the trend that continues, maybe I'll end up all alone. And again, that segues beautifully into my next topic of teenage anger and teenage angst, and every when you're a teenager and every emotion is apocalyptic, you know, you're trying to sort through this mess, and in one moment they're happy, but in another moments they're blowing up, and they're trying to sort what they want for the rest of their life. But now the prospect of what they could do for the rest of their life is shortened by the notion that this asteroid is going to come and wipe everything out. So the heart of the game becomes time. It becomes, what can I do with this time? But also understanding. Fang needs to understand why everyone is on their path. Their friends need to understand why Fang is on their path, and unavoidably so, you're going to have this teenage anger. I remember the teenage anger really well, and it sucks. And you say things you don't mean, and and you're trying to work out these feelings and these emotions. So I think this game does all this beautifully. I've tried to be as vague as possible because I think this is absolutely a game worth playing. It's one of my games of the year. It was simply an incredible experience to have. This is a shorter episode, I realize, but I really just wanted to kind of burst these feelings out because this game, like, I put the controller down and there was a moment, and I thought, like, oh, maybe I can jump back into it, but just to get like additional trophies and stuff. But the feelings were so raw that it was hard for me, knowing certain storylines and how they can progress, how they can not progress. There was an apprehension, there was a fear of like, oh my god, I'm gonna mess it up, and I had a playthrough that I was roughly happy with. I obviously want to play it again to try to get a better outcome. But yeah, um, Goodbye Volcano High was an incredible piece of work, and I highly recommend it. Just to go through the themes of time, of anger, of loss, of loneliness, all these very universal themes, and more so than that, the representation of LGBTQ, Fang being non-binary. There's some trans characters, there are gay characters, and and self-discovery of who you are and what you want, and I think that's super important in this day and age, more so than ever, of learning that you are not alone, and you have friends, and to figure out your own journey is paramount in this day and age. So I think this game was incredible. It's one of my games of the year. Thank you for listening. I hope you at least took something or are interested in playing the game itself. Have a good day.